With 600,000 dead, 950,000 wounded, and 250,000 disabled, along with the unbearable betrayal of the Treaty of Versailles, the post-war Italian government faced serious economic and social problems. The demobilization of the armed forces left Italy with more than 2 million unemployed. National inflation was rampant, and the Spanish flu was sweeping the world. Businesses and institutions associated with the war effort were also damaged and destroyed. And the inevitable aftermath of post-war unrest and the failure of institutional and political authorities to restore confidence condemned Italy to a bleak future. Italy's conscripted and inadequate trained army, consisted of peasants, lacked the basic equipment for warfare and a professional command structure capable of leadership. The fact that Italy was completely unprepared to participate in this great war signified little or nothing to the ruthless elite. The rich rewards secured and agreed upon by the Allied powers justified the sacrifice. Enter, Italian Commander-in-Chief, General Luigi Cadorna. A cold, unsympathetic aristocratic officer, who encouraged unwavering loyalty and obedience by adopting the crushing punishment of decimation. On May 24, 1915, Italian Commander-in-Chief, General Luigi Cadorna enacted Memorandum No. 1, Disciplina di Guerra. This orchestrated the full legalization of rough justice, and they pervaded the army's attitude and behavior towards any breach of discipline, mutiny, or riot. September 28, 1915 Memorandum No. 3525, every soldier must be sure that his superior will be a father or a brother, but he also must be persuaded that his superior has the sacred power to immediately shoot reluctant and cowardly men. Everybody must know that if someone ignominiously tries to surrender or retreat, bullets from the rear lines or from the carabinieri posted at the rear will hit him before he brings shame on himself, provided that his officers' bullets have not shot him dead. October 29, 1915 Memorandum to Commanders of all armies, you must take the strongest and most extreme actions with no restriction or delay, even against an entire detachment. The General Staff will stand by officers of every rank if they act firmly in those situations. May 26, 1916 Memorandum to General Clemente Liquio, Commander of the Altipiano Troops, take the strongest and harshest measures to shoot, if necessary, the persons responsible for this enormous outrage without regard for their rank. May 26, 1916 Memorandum to General Guglielmo Peccori Giraldi, Commander of the First Army, you must use extreme rigor against any possible fugitive soldier in the rear. Soldiers must know that if they retire from the line without their chief's order, they will suffer merciless fire of rifles, machine guns and artillery from their own detachments. November 1, 1916 Memorandum to Commanders of all armies, I remind you that there is not any other effective means to restrain collective crimes than immediately shooting the people chiefly responsible. When it is not possible to ascertain the identity of those responsible, commanders have the right and duty to draw by lots from among the suspects and shoot them. I absolutely and indeclinably oblige all commanders. June 6, 1917 Letter to Prime Minister, Paolo Boselli, I will be compelled to resort to the decimation of the units infected by this contagion. During his tenure, General Cadorna dismissed 216 generals, 255 colonels, and 355 battalion commanders, with 1 out of 17 frontline soldiers disciplined, 61% of whom were found guilty. Due to insufficient weapons and tactics, he ordered Italian soldiers to die by the hundreds of thousands, while staying behind the front lines, and out of harm's way. Current estimates are that 1.78% of the Italian population died, and 5 to 6 million Italians mobilized during the war. This death toll includes the high death rate of Italian prisoners, caused by the decision not to send food parcels, to discourage surrender. Likewise, the established elite brutalized the Italian public, for its firm and persistent opposition to the war. The socialists, pacifists, and Catholics mounted an effective strategy, preventing the ruling class from gaining manufactured consent. This strategy consisted of writing anti-war slogans, posters and flyers, as well as demonstrations, political and public meetings. Along with these actions came the inevitable violence, strikes and unrest. Due to this informal coalition, and their contentious actions, the Italian government used extreme coercion, leaving Italians little choice but to confront the government. In August 1917, high food prices combined with 40,000 protesters calling for an end to the war, led to one of the deadliest confrontations. After a series of attacks on property, including looting of shops and factories and the rapid building and arming of barricades, the army crushed the uprising in Turin. The 10,000 soldiers mobilized to crush the uprising were Sardinian peasants, who were not exempt from compulsory service unlike the privileged factory workers, and carried out their task without hesitation. After the conflict ended, 50 of the protesters were dead and 800 arrested, at the cost of 10 soldiers, proving that the Italian people, on the whole, were easy to divide and unwilling to defy the elite. The contemptuous decision by the elitists to enter the war, without the approval of the parliamentary majority, the Vatican and the people, led to the social conflict and eventual fascism. As the war dragged on, another threat to the Italian population emerged. In April 1918, the Spanish flu appeared, and it would inflict explicit and devastating consequences. The population, worn down by conflict and soaring inflation, with no running water, electricity, or sanitation, and faced with a 75-hour working week, was blindsided by censorship, and succumbed to the disease. In order to keep sensitive information from falling into the hands of the enemy, wartime censorship prevented the government from informing the public, and was an instrumental cause in the death of another 600,000 Italians. Subsequently, this further exacerbated social distrust of elites, who were manipulating the entire system for their own advantage. The choices made by the elites, in managing human capital for their own gain, would have a long-term impact on their privileged social system. After the armistice of November 11, 1918, came into effect, hostilities ceased for 36 days, and negotiations for a suitable and lasting peace began. Yet, the euphoria that swept the nation was short-lived, as it became evident that Italy faced betrayal at the hands of its allies. Italy's mutilated victory caused its spiral fragmentation by opposing interest groups, with Benito Mussolini as the principal antagonist and ultimate victor. Although Mussolini began his political career as an ardent socialist, he was covertly swayed by French and British funding to ensure that Italy entered and remained in the war. In 1919, Mussolini, proved willing and adept at exploiting the rapid disintegration of the Italian state, and financed by the elite, formed the Fasci Italiani di Combattimento, a core group of 200 ruthless veterans. Mussolini's black shirts, with the complicity of the government, industrialists, and the king, provided the means to ensure the destruction of both trade unions and socialist groups. By 1921, Mussolini's black shirts, and the armed forces had crushed all opposition to elite rule, and many considered fascism to be instrumental in restoring order and stability. As a result of symbolism, and a successful propaganda campaign conducted by the elite, the king appointed Mussolini prime minister on October 29, 1922. Following the fascists' victory through fraud, violence and intimidation, the Pope announced that Mussolini was sent by Providence to deliver Italy from liberalism and religious error. With Mussolini's violent victory over liberalism, the elite secured governance by benign despotism, and assured Italians a miserable and bloody future.